The drought in the Panama Canal has instituted the Canal Authority to implement several restrictions. What are some of these restrictions that are now caused by the drought in the Panama Canal?
Well, in the main, what there are restrictions is draft restrictions. And what that translates to is cargo restrictions. So vessels are really being challenged to come in lighter. Mm-hmm. So the science behind it is that while it's a wonderful engineering feat for the country, it requires a lot of water, fresh water, for a ship to move through the 12 locks of the canal. This water comes from 3 neighboring lakes, and in recent years we have seen reduced average rainfall in Panama, and then this year we are seeing drought conditions. So the water levels in these lakes are very low. So the freshwater supply is low, and therefore they're putting some restrictions with respect to the draft of vessels coming in, by extension, the cargo loads, so that the lighter the vessel, the less water is used to traverse the vessel through the 12 locks of the canal.
Mm-hmm. Are we able at this point to have a greater understanding of what the impacts are, or are we still monitoring the situation?
We are monitoring the situation. As you can imagine, it's difficult to quantify at this moment the impact, but we know these increase. One, the reduction in cargo is going to mean that, supply for goods is going to go down, and you're going to have some impact on the freight rates, as well as lead times to import your cargo and so on. But to quantify that right at this moment is difficult.
Mm-hmm. So I know freight rates during the COVID-19 pandemic increased by about $3,000 to about between $3,000 and $5,000. At this point, as you just mentioned, it's very difficult to quantify the extent of the impacts. Therefore, has there been any further increases beyond what we saw in the COVID-19 pandemic?
No. For not as yet. In fact, for a lot of the Far East cargo, that would be cargo coming through the Panama Canal, rates have normalized somewhat to pre-COVID levels. During COVID, it went up to 200-300% more. But they came back and it's resembling pre-COVID levels. Mm-hmm. But we are not, while we might be seeing some incremental increases because these sanctions by the Panama Canal authorities are kicking in, it's not a runaway situation as yet to say that it is going to be 100-200% more what we see in COVID. Mm-hmm. I said it's early days, and we're still monitoring the impact.
Early days, are there any signs of significant improvement in the short term or long term?
Well, there's the thing with something driven by externality, such as an environmental factor, right? It's difficult to say what is medium-term, long-term impact is going to be. The authorities are taking steps or are implementing these charges to sort of restrict cargo and draft coming through the canal. How long it would persist, I don't know. If we'll have rainfall, it's difficult to say. But this is an environmental factor, right? And we are seeing the environmental issue has been in shipping and around industry for years now. Now that we are feeling the full impact in shipping, and it is really affecting dollar value of freight that we see the urgency with it. So it really has to be a macro sort of approach. We have to get to the point, escalate the conversation where not just in shipping, but across all industries, we are more environmentally conscious and doing things that are more environmentally sustainable in our business.
That's an excellent point. In fact, in terms of discussions with stakeholders, such practices that are environmentally stable, have they been more or less implemented and fully practiced, or does a lot more need to be actually done?
A lot more to be done. In shipping, the last 3 years, all our meetings, conferences, and so on, focus heavily on the issue of decarbonization and climate change and the possible impact of that. Of course, there's this direct incident for us with Panama Canal. 6% of the global trade, they pass through the Panama Canal. A lot of our goods coming from the Far East come through the Panama Canal, so it is very pertinent to us now. But on the whole, I would know not enough is being done to, get, if there is a full solution for this, because this is nature you're speaking about. But in terms of practices that are more environmentally sustainable, we can do a lot.
Now, let's get back more so to the financial side of it. How is this situation, this developing situation, going to impact, if it has not already done so, local manufacturers who are dependent on raw materials from the East?
The impact is going to be an increase in freight rates. The extent which across time, I can't say what it is, but we can expect some increase in freight rate.
And beyond just freight rates, because of the supplies that will be reduced due to the restricted weight, is that also going to contribute to inflation?
Of course. Inflation, you're going to see some delays in terms of getting your product. You will have to, if you normally take a 6 week, 2 months lead time to get products, you may consider taking a little longer, treating it as a longer lead time so you're able to get it. So these are things that could affect our manufacturing sector. These are trickle implications. But for the Panama Canal, this situation is a crisis for them. We are seeing we'll see some incremental in freight rates, delays in getting your cargo and so on. For them, it may be they cannot operate the way they intended to after they've invested how much, hundreds of millions of dollars to redo the Panama Canal in 2016. And if that is not viable, if that is not operational, if that reaches to the point where it is just, they cannot facilitate vessels coming through the Panama Canal, that is going to be a major trade block, a major challenge for but we don't want to get pessimistic or anything, but that is what we are looking at, and we are hoping that the Panamanian authorities could get some relief with whatever they're putting in place, and everyone else involved in the industry really take charge and take lead with operating their businesses in an environmentally sustainable way. Because you can see the impact could be anywhere. We're thinking, well, it's probably the sun is hotter for me walking down the street or something like that. As we Chinese like to say, the sun real hot these days, and then we say, well, it's global warming. But these things have real implications, deep implications for global trade, for the standard of living everyone in this side of the hemisphere has been enjoying for some time. So hopeful that at the very least, this is a catalyst, an impetus for us to do more in terms of environmentally sustainable activities.
Have any other alternatives been discussed among stakeholders with trying to get goods to Transmigo in a more timely and efficient manner? I know 6% of the world trade, as you've mentioned previously, passes through the Panama Canal. But are there alternative routes that could prove more timely and perhaps cost-effective, given the situation within the Panama Canal?
The Panama Canal route has been established as the main route for us to get stuff from the Far East because it is the most efficient, it is the most cost-effective. You know, it cuts off a significant margin coming across the Pacific and just going through this gate and you're now in the Atlantic Ocean, as opposed to not really going to the end of the continent or taking it from the Far East across Europe and to Trinidad. It is established as the most efficient. There are other routes through Europe, through the Suez and so on, where you could go through from the Far East to Europe, but it's much longer and it's going to be more expensive. So maybe we could consider bringing it to West Coast US, trucking it to a port, and then bringing it down to our region. We have that a very mature north-south trade. So that could work. But I am sure everyone in the business involved in trade from the Far East are speaking to their agents and their freight forwarders and so on to see what sort of arrangements could be made to mitigate from this, the factors, the implications that will be arising out of it.
I'd like to bring up another factor that only adds to the situation and the cost of freight. It really compounds the overall issue, and that is in regards to duties and value-added tax on imported goods. Does there need to be a re-examination? Does this situation taking place right now furthers the need for a conversation, the re-evaluation or re-examination of duties and value-added tax on imported goods?
Yes, that conversation came up even during COVID when the rates, the freight rates were escalating so highly, and you were paying duties. Duties is also paid on your freight rates. So this situation, yes, is something that should be looked at again. But as you know, we have two major shipping. I would say two major shipping initiatives that are in play currently. One of which is the implementation of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, which customs will now be part of. And with that, we understand that there is going to be a relook at the manpower side of things. It will be sensible to also be a relook of the duties and VAT regime around categories of goods coming into the country and the level of duties and paid on those goods. And then the other major initiative we have around trade and our trade capacity in Trinidad is the public-private partnership for the operation of the Port of Port-of-Spain. So a lot of work is going on there. These are more, customs is the 1st of August, is supposed to be implemented, and it takes some time for them to reach a place of full operation. And the port, that PPP arrangement and redevelopment of the Port of Port-of-Spain is probably more of a medium-term thing. But things are being done on the legal scene to address the issue, to address trade facilitation and trade capacity and competitiveness.
And what about the issue of foreign exchange? Is that issue also furthering this overall situation?
Yes, I mean, the manufacturers of certain commodities what are considered necessities, they do get some relief from the Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank, in terms of access to to US currency. It continues to be a challenge in shipping because a number of shipping lines insist on being paid in US currency. So it is a challenge for us, and we are making representation to the government, applying for access to foreign exchange to ease that burden so that the major lines in particular are not strangled with this dilemma of having to repatriate their funds, their TT funds in US. It's very difficult. It has major implications. Some of the lines are threatening to reduce volumes to leave the market because it's so difficult to repatriate funds. So it's something that is critical and is being addressed at the association.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ms. Alleyne, I think there's a lot more that we can get into, and I'm only too sorry of the difficulties we faced this morning technically, but we're out of time. So I want to thank you very much for all that we were able to get in and all that we were able to address. And I'd be in contact for further updates as this situation continues to develop. But thank you very much for now, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all listeners, and have a great day and weekend.
You too, sir. Keep well. All the very best.